What up everybody, Cult Nerdy Core, back with another video, and this one's going to be the top 10 games that I beat in 2021. I did this video last year as well for the games I beat in 2020, but for those who haven't watched it or those new to the channel, basically the format of these videos is that it's the games I have beaten in 2021, not games that have come out in 2021. There will be some games mixed in that came out this year, but it will mainly focus on older consoles or games that really I've just finally picked up and played for consoles I previously had. And this will only cover games I have fully completed all the way through. There's a bunch of other games that would be on this list if I have actually fully finished them by this time, but this will only cover games that I've beaten from start to end through this time frame, or at least ended in 2021. Before we start, I just want to highlight some of the games that I have beaten but have not made this list because it's the top 10, not all the games. If I beat more than 10 games, can make this list. So I'll just have them highlighted on a list somewhere over here. There's only a couple other games. I honestly haven't beaten too many games this year compared to other years, but I've beaten a lot of bigger games, so kind of hours spent has been put into these bigger, a lot of RPGs. So that's what you'll see with the list coming up. I just like to take this time to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody watching, all my subscribers and non-subscribers, and I just wanted to say, hope you guys have a great year, Happy New Year's, all that jazz, because these two videos will be probably the last ones I'll be putting out for this year, so just want to say that in this video. Now with that all the way, let's get right into the video. So first up is one that most people probably wouldn't expect to make any sort of top 10 list, and that's Shawn Skateboarding. So this is for the PS3. I covered this in my PS3 collection video, which was my last video I put out, but I'll talk about it a little more here. So what Shawn Skateboarding is basically they took more of the story and kind of narrative driven version of a skateboarding game compared to like the more like arcadey where it's just getting high scores or completing certain challenges. This kind of falls under the Tony Hawk Underground realm. I don't want to put it in the same kind of comparison to it, but in terms of the story structure, it's very similar. Basically what this game is and why I enjoyed it so much is you're basically playing as kind of like a, I don't know, a rebel skateboarding group, and this big conglomerate group has taken over the city, and you're trying to free it by, for some reason, busting out cool tricks, frees all the citizens from the conformity that's going on, and they become skaters as well, and the whole place becomes like this big skating paradise. So if you play like the Saboteur, it kind of has the same mechanic as that. The story is nothing to write home about, but it pushes the narrative along and the story along just fine, and it's not brutally boring. What drawn me into this game while I was playing it is the interesting take they took on the skateboarding mechanics. So basically it kind of plays a mix between the more old school button pressing ones, where you just press buttons and that'll do your flips and grabs and stuff, and the way you tweak the controller analog stick indicates what type of grab, what type of flip trick you would do, but it also gives you the option to play kind of how the skate games play, where the right stick is you can do all your board tricks and your grabs and all that based off of your stick movement. So it kind of gives you both play styles to play with, which I really enjoyed. Also, they add in these power mechanics that I haven't seen really in any other skateboarding game I've played. So basically, as you go along through the story, your guy kind of becomes a superhero of skateboarding, where he's able to like make these like infinite rails that just like go throughout the sky and form ramps out of thin air and shoot up into the air and like freeze time and stuff like that. There's a lot of different abilities. You can move ground up and down and just form a bunch of different parts of the environment. There's specific parts of the environment. You can't just go free roaming around with it in terms of like putting it in random spots, but there's specific spots where you can interact and completely change the layout of certain levels. And this mechanic becomes a big part of the story, and it's really fun to mess around with. You can create some really cool lines, and they're all kind of destined to go certain places, but they create some really cool stringed lines, and eventually at the end you get the ability to like create rails out of thin air, so you can have a lot of fun with that. Overall, this was kind of just a refreshing take on the skateboarding genre. It's not the most polished game. I wouldn't say it's the greatest game. But in terms of if you're a big fan of skateboarding games and you just want a fun time, and this seems like something you can pick up and play. It's really short and it's just a good little fun, and there's some fun combo mechanics, and it's very easy to pick up and play. I'd recommend this game, and I had a lot of fun playing it. Alright, coming at number 9, this one might be a shocker because the amount of negative press this game got, and for good reason, is Cyberpunk. So I played this, I have the PS4 copy, but I played this on the PS5. It's like the updated, I don't know, just basically runs better on the PS5. So my experience is based off of the PS5. Now I'm going to start off by saying, just like everybody else, I was very disappointed in how this game came out. I was really hyped for this game, but when it was being pushed out and being kind of forced out by the consumers and stuff like that, and there's a bunch of delays and stuff like that, I knew it wasn't going to be fantastic, but I didn't expect to be as buggy as it was when it came out. So I held off on playing it, so I did not get the initial experience a lot of people who bought this day one did. So my glowing review of it will be a little like kind of color coded and rainbow colored compared to the people who bought it off the start. Those people obviously had a way worse experience with it, so this wouldn't make anybody's list, but I played it I think 6 months after. So first, I'll just touch on the negatives just to get them out of the way. The game's still buggy. It's not as bad as I've seen previously, but there are still some bugs. Enemies will just be T-posing out of nowhere. Enemies will just go through cars. You can go through cars. You'll fly through the ground sometimes. Certain cutscenes just won't work. Certain side missions I can't start because a certain vehicle is just not appearing. So that was kind of annoying. But it's minimal compared to what it was at the start. Definitely improved, and they continue to update it. But I'm not defending it, and I'm still saying it's buggy, and I still wouldn't recommend picking it up if you couldn't play it on a very, very strong PC or a current console. The combat in this game's pretty fun. It kind of reminds me of Borderlands slightly, not in terms of how floaty and over the top and all the powers and stuff, but the kind of loot and shooting that you're doing in this game. It's all about finding different weapons, upgrading them, finding the kind of combination that you like, and crafting and upgrading and applying different bonuses and kind of creating your own unique character and build throughout the thing. The combat's pretty smooth, gunplay is fun, and the melee combat, while it's kind of just spam it till the thing dies in front of you, it can be fun when you get another melee opponent and you can kind of block and chamber and stuff like that. So it gets a little deeper, but the combat's pretty bare bones basic for a shooter, but fun. The driving mechanics in this game are great. There's a whole like race sub story which I really enjoyed, and I think the main thing that still kept me interested in this game, even with all the bugs, was the side missions. I really enjoyed all the different side missions, not the gigs or the little mini stuff that you can do, but the actual side stories that we're involved in. There were some funny ones, there were some unique ones, like you're hunting down these sentient cars, taxis, that go around trying to like kill people and stuff. They all had different personalities. There's a lot of references to other games in this game, which I thought were cool. And the main story, while not amazing, kept me interested for the most part. Really lost me at the end, if I'm not going to be honest. But overall, there were different endings. I felt like my character was kind of unique. It didn't feel like I want to really go back and replay all the different endings. There were the romance options. They were okay. There's kind of just based on your initial character, you have like one set romance basically. But all the characters were good. I enjoyed the character-specific side stories, like the Judy quest, the Pan Am. I would say if you have a current-gen console or a PC strong enough to run it without all the bugs coming into play, I would say it's worth a pickup if you can get it for like $30 or under, which is what I paid for it. I still had fun with it. I still enjoyed it. I still complete all the side stories I could complete. and I had fun with it. So that earns the number 9 spot on my list. Alright, so coming out at number 8 is a sequel to a fighting game I beat, I think last year or the year before. This is Persona Arena Ultimax, I think it's called. So basically what these games are, it's basically, if any of you played BlazBlue, it's the same creators, I think, that make this game. It's a 2D style fighting game with really cool sprites, and it's based off the Persona 4 and Persona 3 games. So if you played those games and enjoyed the characters and kind of the story that they were going for and the story style of how they deliver it in those games, that's portrayed and shines through a lot of these games as well. What I enjoy so much about these games, these two fighting games in particular, is the story and the arcade stories. So we'll start with the story. The story in this game's, I think, a little weaker than the first one, but still pretty good. It's split up into two sides, so you play as the Persona 4 perspective, which is also focused on the Persona 4 characters, with the Persona 3 characters kind of be side characters, and then the Persona 3, which is just the vice versa to it. Similar to the first game of these and all the other Persona games, there's a ton of story. So the story for this game probably takes you, I'm going to say if you read all the text, probably like 20 hours, which is really long for a fighting game. And honestly, it was really enjoyable. I kind of skipped through a little bit in terms of the dialogue on the Persona 3 side, not gonna lie. Never played Persona 3, so the characters don't really interest me as much as Persona 4. But being as big as a fan of Persona 4 as I am, seeing the characters go through all these different stories and just being able to experience the characters a little more in terms of the gaming format was really awesome. And they really nail the new sprites and characters that were added into this game. They look great and they play fantastic. The combat in this game is really fast paced. If any of you have played BlazBlue, basically the same thing. 2D fighting, very fast paced, a lot of jumping, a lot of dashing, and a lot of mixes and matches in terms of a bunch of range characters and kind of isolating characters to more rushdown styles. And then you got the heavier characters that are kind of a mix between the two. So every character feels unique, which is great. And there's a lot of content to do besides the story. There's arcade mode, there's like time trials, there's a survival mode, which is kind of like you level up one character and go through dungeons, which they do kind of the social link thing that Persona is known for, where you can level up links with certain characters to unlock powers and stuff like that. So there's a lot of content in this game, and if you're into the 2D fighting, especially these kind of, I don't know, JRPG anime style ones, this is definitely a great game to pick up. And especially if you're into the Persona 4 games at all, or the Persona 3, and you just want to see those characters and, I don't know, get to hang out with them more and experience another story with them, great pickup. Alright, so coming out at number 7 is Spec Ops The Line. This is one I was recommended a lot through my last PS3 collection video. I finally got around to playing it in 2021, and I was glad I did. So what this game is basically a kind of basic third-person cover shooter, but mixed with some cool squad mechanics where you can kind of tell them to stun certain enemies or target certain enemies. You have kind of two guys you're with the entire story, and you can kind of direct them. And I don't know, it's basic cover shooting mechanics for a third-person shooter, but for one on the PS3 I've played, it's very smooth. The combat feels good, the gunplay is great, and the squad mechanics just kind of add that unique element that kind of sets it apart. But what you're playing this game for, and what you'll enjoy playing this game through if you ever pick it up, is the story. I really enjoyed the story. I thought the kind of transition from the beginning of the game to the end, without saying any spoilers, it slowly gets darker and darker and darker, and kind of takes a different tone, I would say that's the best way to put it without spoiling it, than the beginning of the game. And you kind of view the characters you're playing as and the characters you're interacting with a lot differently throughout the entire story, and it kind of keeps you guessing on which side of, I don't know, good or evil you're on, and how everybody's perceiving the game and the current mission you're on. It gets very deep later and kind of hinges on a bunch of topics that might be off-putting to certain people, but if you're not off-putted by like heavy topics or darker topics, It's a great playthrough. I really enjoyed the twist at the end, and overall the experience of the game was really entertaining throughout the whole thing. Definitely the story is what carries this game. The combat's fun, it's serviceable enough to get you through the game, but the story is just so interesting. Alright, next up is the first PS5 game I actually played, and that's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I haven't played Assassin's Creed for a very long time. I think the last one I played through was Unity. So whenever that came out, I think it was like the second year of the PS4. But I decided to give it another chance on the PS5. I figured first game I played through on the PS4 was Black Flag, might as well make it Valhalla on the PS5. I think what made me enjoy this game a lot more than other Assassin's Creed games I played is the new style that they went for in this game. I don't know if it's specific to this game because I haven't played like Origins or any of the other more recent ones, but they really focused on the kind of hack and slash combat compared to the stealth elements. You can still do the stealth elements, but being that this is a Viking game, they really went heavy on the you build your like Viking crew, you have a ship, you go around raiding and just kind of slaughtering people, and the choice to kind of be able to just play it as a hack and slash game, which I did, was a lot of fun. And being able to create these vast builds with a bunch of different abilities, different weapons, upgrading your armor, upgrading your village, which gives you different powers and different points and different allies, and just creating this cool build with a bunch of different weapons was a lot of fun. It really took me kind of for surprise that I was playing an Assassin's Creed game. The story in this game is pretty good, it's solid. There's a ton of story in this game. It's basically set up so there's like, I'm gonna say 12 different areas that you kind of slowly go and conquer and grab allies from, and they each have their own, like, I'm gonna say 5 to 6 hour story each with them, with all the different little sub stories in there as well. Also there's like the hunting, the order, which would be like the Templars in this time. So there's a ton of different side objectives, there's boss fights, and the mix and match and variety of content in this game was really fun. The only things I would say that were negative about this game is the map's kind of empty and the side quests aren't the greatest. I would say the main stories for each of the areas and hunting the assassins and upgrading your village and doing raids, that part was amazing. I really enjoyed that, and that's what carried the game for me. But there's definitely some stuff that kept it from being higher on my list. But I had a lot of fun playing this game, and I played it for like, I think I played 96 hours into this game, so it was definitely a lot of fun. Alright, next up, we're going more so old school with a PS2 game. We got SSX. This is the original one, first one that ever came out. I finally got around to beating the entire game. I played this game a lot as a kid, but I went back and I've never actually beaten the entire game. I got like 3/4 of the way through. So I started a new character with a friend, and we beat the game all the way through, and I really enjoyed it, even coming back in 2021 to play it. For those of you who don't know, SSX Games, a snowboarding series, very popular in the like GameCube era, original Xbox era, and had the last game come out in the PS3, and this was the first game that ever came out for it. It's a snowboarding game, very arcadey, and really focuses on racing and trick competitions. What I enjoyed so much about going back to this game and completing it is the tracks in this game. The tracks in this game, in my opinion, have some of the best throughout the series. They're so unique in terms of like the areas. There's a Hawaii map that really has these cool over-the-top Hawaii themes. It follows the same things as other SSX games, where it's like a big competition that takes place worldwide with all these different riders from different parts of the world. And really, this game focuses on creating these super unique and interesting maps for each of these areas. And I think it's the best part of the game, to be honest. The riding and gameplay mechanics definitely have gotten better with time. I think the best being SSX 3. But this game is still solid. It's a little, I would say, stiff in terms of the riding and tricks. But once you get the hang of it and get your character upgraded, it definitely turns into a really fun experience. And I also really enjoyed that there's actual harder to do progressing, and each rider is sort of capped at certain points, and each rider kind of has I would say a little bit of a specialty to them. It's not kind of like everybody can be a jack of all trades. You can do everything with every character, but certain characters are better at certain things, which I really enjoy in games because it gives you more replayability. Overall, it's my favorite series of all time. It was great to go back and finally beat this game. I would say probably my third favorite out of the entire series. I would say it goes 3 Tricky and then this game. But still a lot of fun, and I would recommend if anybody hasn't played it and enjoys a good snowboarding game, I would definitely recommend picking it up. But this lands at number 5 on my list. Our next up, coming in at number 4, is Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions. This was kind of a surprise hit for me. I picked this up because it was an arcade sports game. I had my eye on it for a while and finally decided to pick it up. I think I paid, I'm going to say $30 or $40 for it. I don't follow the anime personally, but I really enjoyed this game. For those of you who don't know anything about this game, it's a arcadey soccer game that really takes an over-the-top take to the arcadey sports genre. What I mean by that is, normally with arcadey sports games you just get like little power-ups and you kind of have like turbo shots and stuff like that. But in this one you have like these mega shots that you're summoning like tigers with the ball, and it kind of knocks over the goalies, or you can both jump in the air and like mash your buttons and you can send the ball flying across the map and do these crazy like double passes, and you can do like twin shots where 2 people shoot the ball at the same time, and everybody's like these super powerful soccer players. It's like almost having a bunch of superheroes playing soccer, and it really is a lot of fun. So what this game basically is, you have your regular modes where it's like just kind of you can verse 2 teams that you want against each other. But what I really enjoyed about this game was the story modes. First up, you have the Captain Tsubasa story itself. That's where you're introduced to kind of the character itself, and you play through his, I think it's just junior youth, elementary school or high school team, and like this big tournament with all the different teams. And it's kind of where you're learning the mechanics of the game, and your team's overpowered as crap, and you basically just mollywop the entire tournament if you've played soccer games before like me. But it was a lot of fun. Then you get on to the next one where you're playing as a created character, and you can create your position, you can do some of your stats, create like, everybody has like auras or different powers built into them that you can set that give you different buffs or different moves that you can do, and different power moves. There's a lot of depth to the character creation in this game, but I got a little sidetracked. You create your character and you can do its own story, which is the bigger story. They kind of take off the training wheels for this one. This one's a lot harder. You'll start off by joining one of the school teams that were in the Tsubasa chapter that you faced. So I picked it's the one with the guy with the heart condition. You can only play like 1/2 or something. I forget the name of the school I picked. But basically, since I picked that school, my character fits into the roster, and then you can kind of upgrade your team based on how well they perform. You can upgrade your character by how well your specific character performs in the matches, and there's just so much depth to this game. You have kind of like these social link cards that are either from players on your team or other teams that they'll give you their unique powers. So say you have one example is one of the main guys on the rival to Tsubasa's team has like this tiger shot where he summons a tiger, and it's just a really strong, straightforward shot. I wanted that for my character, so I befriended him and kind of grinded up his social links, and then I was able to learn the shot from him to deepen my character's like abilities and stuff like that. So you can kind of mold your like all-star character that you're really happy with, and have a bunch of different abilities from your favorite characters. It gets harder near the end where you're kind of going to like the Japan all like national team, and you're fighting all the different teams from parts of the world, like the German team, the Swedish team, and stuff like that. When you get to that part of the story, which is near the end, it ramps up in difficulty a lot, but overall the challenge is fair, and I had a lot of fun playing this game. And in terms of a sports game, it has some of the greatest depth I've seen in a sports game, and it was just a ton of fun and has a lot of replayability to it, which gets it so high on my list. Alright, so coming in at number 3, top 3 time, is Uncharted 3, so that kind of fits. So I finally got around to playing this game. I know it's been forever since this game came out. I've had this game and owned this game for like 3 years now, but I finally got around to playing it, and honestly, I was a little hesitant to, because compared to other people, I'm not the biggest Uncharted fan. I enjoy the games, I think they're great, and just the exploration and treasure hunting part never interested me too much. I was more into like the shooting combat and just kind of the fun banter between the characters. That's what more draws me to these games. But honestly, it might just be recent bias because I haven't played the other ones in a very long time. But honestly, I feel like I enjoyed this one the most. I think the reason for that is this game I found the combat to be the best out of the 3 games that I've played, which are the original 3. And the story, well, I'd say not as interesting as the second one. I found I enjoyed the characters a lot more. Besides Drake himself, Drake is a little whiny in this game for some reason. But overall, Sully and the other characters that are in this game as well were just the banter between them I enjoyed a lot. And I find the set pieces and the combat and just like the kind of settings for everything, I found it a lot more interesting for some reason in this game. I also found there was a lot less puzzles and just climbing aimlessly while story was read out to you basically. So I enjoyed that. And overall, I just had a lot of fun playing this game. The third-person shooting mechanics were really solid, and the story was good enough to keep me interested throughout the whole way. And I played this through pretty quickly because I really wanted to see how it ended. And I enjoyed the ending. The story was solid all the way through, and it was just a good time. I'm not going to go into too much depth about this game because so many people have played this game and everybody knows really what these games are about. But the third-person combat in this game was great. Enjoyed it a lot more than the other games. The story was solid. The character banter was fantastic. Drake's a little questionable, but overall, I think this is my favorite game out of the Uncharted series, and I'm glad I finally got around to playing it. I will try to get through 4 and Lost Legacy next year, hopefully, so that I can finally wrap up the series for me. Alright, next up is Hitman 3. I have only Hitman 3 in physical copy, but I'm including Hitman 1, 2, and 3 out of these like revamped new series all together in this because I have them digitally, which I can play on the same disc. But I finally got into playing the new Hitman. I was looking for something to play on the PS5, and I was like, maybe I'll give it a shot. I enjoyed the old Hitman games, but I never really got into them too much. But I was a lot younger, so I was like, might as well pick it up, give it a shot. And I started playing through it, and I fell in love with these games. The absolute depth of the level design in these games is fantastic. What I never really appreciated about the old Hitman games, which I did appreciate in this because I'm a little older and understand, you know, the games and all that stuff a little better, is the amount of detail they put into these maps and like how great it feels to play on the hardest difficulty and figure out kind of the enemy's routes, where they go, different opportunities to kind of blend in, or new disguises and stuff like that, and different ways to kill your targets. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed playing these games. For those of you who don't know these games, I kind of went on a tangent there, but for those of you who don't know about these games, it's a third-person stealth game. You play as basically an assassin, Agent 47, and you basically go around hunting down targets, and there's kind of a, I don't know, short-winded story throughout the thing that kind of just connects each target, each kill to kind of like this overarching story. The story itself is actually pretty interesting, but it's really short and kind of just explained through little cutscenes or dialogue between characters during the actual mission. As kind of what I touched on before, what's so great about these games is, one, the stealth mechanics are very solid. It relies more on like taking out people and assuming their position in kind of the, I don't know, party or event that you're going to, so you're kind of blending in to the crowd more than just kind of staying in the shadows around the crowd type thing, which is these games are always known for and what separates them from other stealth games. I think what I enjoyed most about these games is, one, combat's really good, two, there's a ton of different gadgets and weapons you can unlock and you can implement them when you replay levels, and there's a bunch of like challenges and quests you can kind of do throughout the thing to kind of experience all the different ways you could have completed the level. So they kind of give you little guides almost, or little like puzzle pieces to help you figure out different ways you could have killed the targets, and it gives you a ton of replayability. So these games are fantastic. They have user uploaded maps as well. If you ever get bored of the originals, you can go to user uploaded ones and just constantly have an endless stream of missions to play through. And honestly, I just really enjoy this game, and I still play it from time to time nowadays. It's one of the only games still always on my PS5, so for that reason it gets the number 2. Okay, so I usually have a rule with these lists where I don't like to do remakes on any of my list as like number 1 or like very high, because I feel like the older version of the game should get more of the praise than the remake. But when it comes to a specific game series that I really enjoy and has one of my favorite games of all time on it, and it's one of my favorite series in general, I would say my second favorite behind SSX, I kind of make an exception to that rule. And for those of you who haven't guessed it yet, that is the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So to start off with the reason why this gets number 1 for me, first off, the second game of this is my second favorite game of all time. The series is my second favorite series of all time, and it's just one of the series I can always go back and play and just have a fantastic time playing it. So basically what this game is in particular is basically a kind of remake to an extent, but it's more just a enhancement of the first 3 games, all available on one disc set. So I played this on the PS5, so I might have a slightly different experience than somebody on the PS4 with these games. But the improvements made to the originals are fantastic. It basically takes the majority of the negative stuff I have to say about the first and fixes a lot of the stuff. It fixes the issues with the load time, it fixes the UI in the first game, it fixes the driving mechanics in the first game, and really it's just a great way to own all these games together. For those of you who don't know about this game, and all those things I just said didn't make much sense, these are third-person shooters that, for those of you who haven't played a BioWare game, it's basically a RPG that all interconnects together from, there's 3 games in this set, and they all interconnect together and their story transfers throughout. So basically all the choices you make in the first and second game will have consequences throughout the series, and your character will kind of have this overarching story with all the different characters you interact with in your squad or just out in the universe while playing these games. The combat in these games are fantastic. Great third-person shooter with kind of powers mixed in, and squad mechanics where they each have their own set of powers. So there's a lot of different combos and combinations you can make, and you'll find your favorite squad mates that kind of bring out. But the main thing that really makes me enjoy these games so much is the story, learning about your squad mates, the story itself, and all the different lore and characters you interact with. Really what drives this game for me, and really is why I fall in love with this series. So if you haven't played these games, I would highly recommend playing these games, and if I could recommend a way to get them, it would be the Legendary Edition. The big fix is the load times. Being able to play this game on the fly with very little load times in between, one, speeds up the experience in terms of like cutting down a bunch of useless playtime that was just spent through loading screens, and the fixes on the UI are huge. It just makes this game so much fun to play, and also it adds all the DLC from all the different games, which I haven't played any of the DLC beforehand, and especially the third game. The amount of DLC and the amount of content it adds to, and quality content, was really awesome. My favorite thing honestly was either the Omega missions or the after party itself. because you just get to experience more with the characters that you grow to love throughout the entire series. And it was just a great thing to kind of close out the series and add on to more of the ending lore of the game. So just to summarize, fantastic game, one of my favorite game series of all time, with one of my favorite games of all time in the series. They remade it, better graphics, better UI, and with amazing load times, and kind of feels a little better playing. It's a little less clunky. So overall, can't go wrong with this, and the reason why it's the #1 on my list. So there you have it. Those are the top 10 games I beat in 2021. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if my choice of games to play is horrible, or you enjoyed the games I played and played them yourselves and enjoyed them yourselves as well. Also let me know some of the games you have played this year and some of the games you think I should pick up, especially games that have come out this year. I haven't picked up too many. There was a couple on my list and a couple on the side that I've played that have come out this year, but I honestly haven't picked up too many from this year. So if you have any recommendations, definitely let me know in the comments below. Overall, I just want to say thank you for another great year on the channel, and hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and just remember, everybody has some nerdiness at their core.